Everyone knows about the US and Blackwater, right? But have you heard of the Wagner Group? Well, if you haven't, then you might want to listen up because it's arguably the world's most effective mercenary army, created, funded, and controlled by Russia. It acts as President Vladimir Putin's invisible hand in Syria, Libya, Sudan, Ukraine, Venezuela, the CAR, and even Madagascar. The group has created troll armies, tampered with Western democracies and electoral processes, fought and won real wars, taken over strategic territories, carried out assassinations, and the cherry on top of the cake, Russia's political interests are fulfilled while maintaining plausible deniability. First off, let's start with the man who is allegedly behind Wagner PMC, or Wagner Private Military Company. He goes by the name of Yevgeny Prigozhin. As a young adult, Prigozhin was sentenced to 9 years in prison for robbery and fraud. After he was released, he became a hot dog vendor. But the ex-convict had big aspirations. Coupled with Russia's shocking transition to capitalism in the 1990s, Prigozhin expanded his business by setting up St. Petersburg's first grocery chain, and then went into luxury restaurants. In 2001, the man himself, Vladimir Putin, started dining in Prigozhin's new island, a luxury floating restaurant in his hometown of St. Petersburg. Prigozhin didn't waste the opportunity to personally serve his president, and so the two men hit it off. Now, the hot dog seller suddenly found himself a spot in the president's elite circle, earning him the nickname Putin's chef. The pivotal point in his life came with many benefits, including billion-dollar military and school catering contracts and tenders that enabled him to become a construction magnate. Over the last 20 years, he has engaged in a wide range of other businesses and activities with the Kremlin, and the equation is simple. Prigozhin's commercial interests and the Kremlin's pursuit of national interests were aligned. Wagner PMC is at the heart of this Russian roulette. Wagner PMC was born out of the conflict in Ukraine. During the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014, the Russian army turned to Wagner's mercenaries, known as Little Green Men. They were reportedly involved in shooting down a Ukrainian Il-76 military airlift, assassinated rogue separatist leaders, and participated in the Battle of Debaltseve. For the fighters, mostly army veterans, it is clearly a money game. In 3 months, a mercenary can make around 1 million Russian rubles or $16,000, which goes a long way in that part of the world. And in some cases, it's more than 10 times what they'd be paid as a regular soldier. A commander can earn about 3 times more. If they die in combat, their families will receive around $56,000. For Russia, having mercenaries serves its purpose threefold. It gets battle-hardened mercenaries and doesn't need to deal with inactive veterans. But most importantly, Moscow gets to maintain plausible deniability while expanding its foreign policy reach. In other words, Russia can say it's not officially interfering in Libya, but can fulfill its strategic interests by having Wagner mercenaries there. Nearly a decade after its first appearance, Wagner has now spread across the world. This chart helps visualize the connection between Prigozhin's commercial interests and Russia's foreign policy engagement. But there is more. Prigozhin's other commercial interests also align with where Wagner mercenaries go. So for instance, in January 2018, Prigozhin's Evropolis signed a contract with the Syrian state-owned General Petroleum Corporation. Evropolis would get 25% of the output from any petroleum facilities retaken for Bashar al-Assad by Wagner mercenaries. A month later, Wagner mercenaries were involved in a risky assault on a US-operated oil outpost in eastern Syria. US intelligence revealed Prigozhin had participated directly in planning the attack. But the mission was actually a failure, as US forces successfully repelled this provocative action by killing 200 to 300 Wagner mercenaries. Despite this reckless overstepping, there is no doubt that Russia's arrival in Syria in 2015 was a game changer. Wagner played an important role in providing a lifeline to Syria's Bashar al-Assad. 2,500 of Prigozhin's men were reportedly sent to guard energy and military facilities. helping Assad simultaneously protect facilities and mount offensives to recapture territories. A key example is the Palmyra offensive in 2016, during which it supplied the initial shock force to reclaim the city from Daesh. A Russian military source speaking to RBC News said this about how fighting goes down in Syria. First, Wagner's guys go to work, then the Russian ground units come in and the Arabs and the cameras. And the group stands accused of gross human rights violations, a horrifying video of Wagner mercenaries breaking a Syrian man's legs with a sledgehammer, crushing his chest, beheading him and cutting off his lower arms was published recently. The victim was identified as Mohammed Taha, a Syrian national who was accused of deserting a unit loyal to Assad. Putin and his chef have taken this war machine and used it in their rapid scramble for Africa. Russia outwitted France to obtain an exception to the United Nations CAR arms embargo in 2018. Stratfor reported that 370 Wagner contractors were deployed to CAR, providing security for President Faustin Archange Touadéra. Obviously, the service isn't free of charge. CAR is rich in diamonds, oil, gold, and uranium, and the Russian Foreign Ministry has discussed mining concessions with Touadéra. The Russians have initiated diamond extraction already, and Wagner appears to have taken up security at the mines. It is important to note that 3 Russian journalists were killed in CAR in the summer of 2018. The journalists were investigating Wagner's presence there and were planning to film gold mines in Libya, the land of Omar Mukhtar. Expansion is still on the cards for Putin and his chef. Evidence of Wagner's presence in Libya's sandy plains surfaced in November 2018 when footage revealed Prigozhin sitting among prominent Russian defense officials in a meeting with the LNA. Also, 2 Russian nationals were caught a year later and accused of tampering with local elections and gathering intelligence on military outposts. By the UN-recognized Government of National Accord, Wagner mercenaries are allegedly used as snipers, drone pilots, and to train LNA soldiers. The head of the LNA, warlord Khalifa Haftar, has been quietly and steadily backed by Russia. Moscow has an interest in the energy resources in Haftar-controlled territories and signed an oil offtake deal in 2017. Once again, Russia is trying to leverage guns and money to find itself in an advantageous position in post-war Libya. It's more or less a similar situation in Sudan, Madagascar, and Venezuela. Prigozhin is acting as Putin's private enabler. Putin's chef has also earned himself another nickname, the King of Dislikes, and this is due to his involvement in setting up troll armies and spreading fake news. The US government has indicted Prigozhin and another 13 Russians over fraud and deceit for the purpose of interfering with the US political and electoral processes. He is being directly accused of spending significant funds on the Internet Research Agency, a St. Petersburg body that has been nicknamed the Russian Troll Factory. These Russian trolls are accused of tampering with the US elections and other democracies such as the UK and France, and so it should be now very clear that Prigozhin has his finger in many pies. But this can also have dire consequences such as the US indictment. His companies are on the sanctions list, and news agencies around the world have tried to shed light on his clandestine activities. So will Russia's quest to capitalize on humanitarian crisis pay off? Will the crimes committed by Wagner continue? And as with Blackwater, will justice be evaded?